Today I'm going to be reading to you from our classroom Bible, and I'm going to be reading the story about Holy Thursday. So, 2 days after Judas made his deal, the Passover festival began. Thousands of people had come to Jerusalem for this feast. On Thursday, Jesus told Peter and John, "I want you to get everything ready for Passover." "But teacher, where do you want us to do this?" He said, "Go into the city. There you will meet a man carrying a jar of water. Follow him. Then go to the owner of whichever house this man enters. Tell the owner, 'The teacher says his time has come. He would like to bring his disciples and keep the Passover at your house.'" Peter and John did as Jesus said. When they approached the owner of the house, he nodded. It was as if he had known all along that Jesus would stay at his home. Together they made sure there was enough food in the house. The man showed Peter and John a big room upstairs. There was a large, low table. Jesus and his disciples could share the Passover meal in private. It would be like no other meal in history. That night, Jesus and his 12 closest disciples would break bread and drink wine of Passover. They remembered how God had saved his people in Egypt. He had destroyed the terrible Pharaoh who had forced them into slavery. Jesus sat quietly at one end of the table. A few of the disciples talked together. Their heads were bent close. Suddenly, this little group started arguing. "I am." "No, I am." They were fighting about who was the most important disciple. Some thought it was John. Some thought it was Peter. Jesus frowned and spoke. "Kings and rulers fight over power. You must be different. With you, the one who serves should be your leader. Who is more important, the one who sits at the table eating or the one who serves the meal? With you, it's the one who serves the meal. Look at me. I am serving you. This is how you should be with each other. You have stayed with me. When all of this is over, you will join me in my Father's kingdom. Then you will sit on the thrones and judge the 12 tribes of Israel." Jesus looked around at his 12 closest friends. These were the men who would carry on his work after he went back to heaven. He loved these men. He had loved them from the beginning, and he loved them to the end. Jesus knew the Father had given him a choice. As all people can, the Son of Man could choose to follow the plan God had for his life, or he could turn away from the plan and go his own way. Jesus came from God. He wanted to return to God. He would always be at God's side. He looked around at his disciples and stood up. The disciples stopped talking. They watched as Jesus poured water into a bowl. Then he looked up at them. "My friends, no one has washed your feet." He went to each one of them and knelt. Then Jesus slipped off their sandals and washed their feet. He dried them with a towel that he had tied around his waist. Jesus was teacher and leader to these men, yet he was doing something only a slave was supposed to do. With his own 2 hands and a bowl of water, he slowly cleaned the sand and dust off each man's feet, drying them with a towel. Peter could not stand it anymore. He cried out, "Lord, what are you doing? Lord, you're going to wash my feet too? That's a slave's job." "You don't understand now why I'm doing this? Someday you will," Jesus said. Peter answered, "No, never. You should never have to wash my feet." Peter could not bear to see Jesus, their king, acting like a slave. "Peter, if I don't wash you, you cannot grow closer to me." When Peter heard this, he said, "Not just my feet then, Lord. Please wash my hands and my head too." Even then, Peter did not fully understand what Jesus was doing and why. So, when Jesus had finished, he put his robe back on. He sat down again, then he told them the reason why he was acting as their slave. "Do you know what I was doing? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right. If I, who am your Lord, wash your feet, then what do you think you should do for each other?" The disciples who had been fighting about which one were the greatest, had been fighting about which one was the greatest, and now he was giving them an example to follow. This is the way to become truly great. Anyone who believes in me and what I say to you is not just believing in me, but also in my Father who sent me. The ones who follow Jesus' example are doing what God wants. Jesus knew that his disciples would need as much help as possible in sorting out the next few days, as a dark time was ahead of them all. If they could learn to serve each other, the dark time might be a little easier to get through. They would have the Lord's blessing if only they chose to listen and hear. So I wanted to read this part of the Bible to you today because when we're in Mass, we hear the part about the Last Supper. Every time we celebrate the Eucharist, we talk about that part. You know, Jesus breaking bread and passing it around and saying, "This is my body and this is my blood." But we don't hear the part about him washing their feet very often. And it's a very powerful message that Jesus is sending to us. He's saying to us that we need to treat each other with humility and love and caring about everyone. It doesn't matter whether you're the most important person. The most important thing is to care for others and take care of the people around us. And that means our families, that means the poor, that means people who are sick. And so try and think about ways that you can help people. In Jesus' time, it was an act to wash someone's feet. But if you see, your mom has made 10 snacks today and the dishes are piling up in the sink, what's the act of kindness and love that you can do for your mom today? If there's a pile of laundry on the couch, maybe you can be the one that goes and picks it up and takes care of it without being asked. What can you do to support the others around you right now? We can't go out and necessarily do all of our acts like visiting people in the hospital right now because it's a strange time, but we can help the people who are around us in our families and in our homes, and serve them and love them. So I hope you reflect today and have a prayerful Holy Thursday, and we can all celebrate together on Easter Sunday. Bye, guys.